Simplifying the technical part of landscape photography has been a game changer for me, and with the amazing features of the Nikon Z7ii, I find that streamlining the settings down to one button, I can concentrate on other things like the creative part of photography. Now, I'm always going to have to adjust the 3 exposure settings and of course moving around the focus point, but everything else I can automate to exactly what I need for landscape photography with a custom preset. Oh man, how nice is this? Beautiful dusting of snow last night. I was looking at the weather. One of the first things I always do is I always turn on back button focus. That is a huge deal for me. I use it in everything, wildlife, landscape, no matter what it is. Of course, I'm always shooting in RAW. I always do flat profile, picture profile. Now, of course, the picture profiles are just presets. If you're shooting in RAW, it doesn't matter, but I always shoot in a flat profile. Just so I can see what's going to be, as close to a raw file as possible. I also shoot in manual mode. So in order to set all this stuff up in a way that I can just use one of the user presets, you'll see on top of the camera here, you got use U1, U2, and U3. These are user presets. All right, let's dive into how I set everything up. First, make sure that you have this switch set to photo and not video. And put the camera, of course, in manual mode for the setup part. Now, in the photo shooting menu, I keep the storage folder and the file naming the same. This is just the import folder, and the file name you're going to see when you plug in your memory card to the computer. Now for the primary slot, I just have it going to the XQD card or CFX Express card, whatever you own. And as a secondary slot, it's just a backup. So I'm only going to change this if I'm shooting wildlife and I might need more card space. Or if I'm shooting something like time lapses, then I'll consider to switch it to overflow so that once my primary card fills up, it's going to start to write onto that secondary card. But for landscape photography, I have it set as backup. That way I have 2 copies of all the photos just in case. Now the image area I keep at FX with a 2:3 ratio, but if I want a preview of a different crop, I can come in here and I can change it to a 4:5 or a square or 16:9. Then if I need an extra little reach, I can use DX mode, but if you do choose DX mode, it is a 1.4 crop and you do lose megapixels. So instead of the 46 megapixels, it's going to be right around 20 megapixels in DX mode. For the raw file size, I just keep it on large. There's no need to choose the medium or the small unless you're really trying to save on memory card space, and once again, you're losing megapixels. For white balance, I prefer to use Kelvin and I adjust white balance manually, but since you're shooting in RAW, in most situations, auto white balance works if that's what you prefer. Now, here's where I set my picture profile. Now, under the set picture control, I can choose any one of these, but I prefer flat, as it's the closest to what the raw file is going to look like. You can even go in and adjust each one of these profiles as well, but I'm not going to get into that in this video. I also choose the larger color space in Adobe RGB, and for my metering, I prefer matrix metering for landscape photography, and I use that 100% of the time. Matrix metering is just taking a measurement of the light around the entire scene and finding the average. Some of these other ones I'll use for like wildlife photography, but for landscapes, I always keep it on matrix. For the focus mode, I use AFC. Now this is the beauty of shooting with the back button focus using the AF on button. I can use either AFS, and I just hold the focus down once to lock focus, and then I can let it go. Or I have the option to hold down the AF on button to do continuous focus. Now for focus area, I like single point that I can move around manually, and I can be a bit more precise too on where I place my focus point. All right, now down to the fun stuff, the custom settings menu. For autofocus, I like both AFC and AFS priority selection to be on release. What this means is this allows me to take a photo even though the camera doesn't think that I've achieved focus yet. If I leave it set to focus, then if the camera doesn't see or doesn't think that you've locked focus, it won't let you trigger the shutter. Now, I would prefer to avoid any potential headache with a difference of opinion with the camera, so I just prefer to release it. I can take the photo and decide later if I've made focus or not. Now, I use all of the focus points available so I can be precise in where exactly I place my focus point. And if AF activation is where I turn on back button focus, I set this to AF on button and I remove any autofocus from the shutter. So now pressing the shutter halfway down doesn't do anything. Again, this is about simplicity. I have one button, the AF on button for focus, and then the shutter takes the photo. That's it. One button does one function. This here is an important setting, setting up exposure delay mode. Now there's two ways to set up the delay on your shutter, so that when you press the shutter, you get your hand away from the camera to reduce any kind of camera shake or potential movement from your hand, and the camera takes the photo. Now this way here in exposure delay is much better, and I'm going to show you why. So the other way to set up a delay is to use the self timer, and you can access it here in the menu, or you can access this in the button down here at the bottom right. Here's the problem. If you use the self timer function, once you shut the camera off and turn it back on again, the self-timer mode is going to revert back to either single shutter mode or continuous high. Now this happens even if you set all of this up like I'm showing you and you create a preset and use, the U1 preset. For some reason, this setting is never remembered. I don't know why Nikon does this. So the way to get around this is to have the 2-second delay and set it up inside the exposure delay mode here. That way the camera will remember it. Next, the extended shutter speed. I don't know why this is even a choice to have this off, but please keep it on. This allows you to go past 30 seconds in your shutter speed, allows you for these really long exposures. So just make sure that that's turned on. Also, make sure to apply all the settings to live view so you can see them on the LCD screen and in the viewfinder. All right, now for the I menu. This is the custom menu that I like a lot. It gives you quick access to all the important settings and you can customize what you put in here. So it's this button right here, and let's customize it so we can have all the functions we might need quick access to. I have picture control, I have image area, the AF area mode, Wi-Fi in case I want to shoot with my SnapBridge app. I do have the release mode here, but also next to it is the exposure delay that we set up in the menu. So I can quickly change it if I want a longer or shorter delay. If I want something longer than 2 seconds, like 5 or 10, I can do that. I can also change my white balance, ISO, auto manual focus, vibration control. I can see the memory card info. I can even change meter modes, which I never do, but it is there if I ever need quick access. And lastly is my actual exposure settings. Now this doesn't matter as much because we're always changing the exposure, but I do like to set it. So what I do is I set the aperture to f8, the ISO to the base, which is 64, and then the shutter speed just to something random. It doesn't really matter too much. Now we need to save all of this so we don't ever have to do this again. We go into the setup menu, go into save user settings, and choose save to U1. Now, in this top button here, you just switch it to U1, and now all your settings are ready for landscape photography. What light this is. Look at this. So there's my composition. Light just touching that beautiful peak back there. We got all of these granite, the dark sky. Oh, that is just perfect. I'm at f11, 1/8 of a second, ISO 64. Got my histogram pushed all the way over to the right, and bam. This place is absolutely special when there's snow on the ground. Oh, you can't beat it. Look at that. This is awesome. So I left the granite boulder area towards another part of the lake that has more trees and a little bit of a different look, but I stopped at this nice dock to get a photo. Now I really wish I'd gotten there a few minutes before when the sun was covered up. So because I have in my I menu here, I have that set picture profile, what I can do is I can preview. If I want to see what something might look like in black and white, I want to come in here to my picture profile and choose monochrome and get a look. And this is just giving me a preview of what it would look like in black and white, which it looks absolutely beautiful. Now, because I'm shooting in RAW, I'm still getting the color. So on the RAW file, I'm still gonna have the color. It'll get imported in as monochrome, but I can change that in, Adobe with the picture profile. I wanna smooth out that water. There's a bit of ripple in there, so I'm gonna try it with and without an ND filter, because I might actually like the ripple in the water. It just gives it a little bit of texture, but I wanna try it also with the filter to smooth it out to see if that changes anything. Give myself an option back in post-processing. Oh, beautiful little scene, huh? Nice, peaceful, quiet. Just me here with the with the geese and probably some owls around here somewhere. I've been looking for them, but Oh man, what a spot though.